What's up, everyone? George Balekji here with Boston is in the chat. But hey, check out the latest episode of Foxborough Rush. Travis Thomas and myself, we run through the entire first round of the upcoming NFL draft. Yes, we do a first round 32-pick mock draft for picking for all 32 teams. You'll see who the Patriots get at 4, but also the picks that happen from 25 to 32 that may mess up their plan at the beginning of round 2. That's Foxborough Rush, wherever you get your podcast. Everything Patriots, everything Drake May, everything Mike Vrabel, everything NFL. New episodes dropping every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but that's the latest episode wherever you get your podcasts. Now, let's get to the chat. All right, what's up? What's happening? Welcome in. It's Boston has entered the chat. George Balekji here with Kasey Hudson. Got a packed show for you guys today. All going to start with the great news. Garrett Crochet agreeing to a big $sign extension with the Red Sox. But first things first, Case, how we doing?
We're good. We're good. I never thought I'd complain about a fake spring in Boston and a broken AC unit, but that was the top of the day for me. But
too hot for you?
Yeah.
You're from Florida.
Exactly. So I
It's like
don't know if
60.
it's like a good thing that I am adjusting so quickly or if what it says about
Your blood
me.
thinned.
But yeah, quickly at that. But I mean, I could have more complaints and I don't have them. So we're good.
You could be stuck with Florida drivers here.
Yeah, you and this Florida driver hate. I swear. Check my driving record.
It's
Stellar.
not. No, it's not you. It's not you individually.
I
don't know Kasey Hudson as a driver.
Florida driver.
I've driven in Florida. Majority of the people.
And I have driven in Jersey.
Yeah.
And have complaints.
We're decisive, aggressive, but decisive.
You guys are bullish.
That's
what
fine.
I'd call it.
We'll take it.
Reckless.
Hey,
a couple other things.
Red Sox, not bullish, not reckless, but decisive with the extension they gave Garrett Crochet. 6 years, $170 million, going to their now ace. This is significant, Kasey, for 2 parts. One is, this is the biggest extension ever given out for a Major League pitcher with only 4 years of service time. So a very small sample size when you think of the full body of work from what you expect for pitchers in Major League Baseball. Also, this was given after he's done 1 regular season start for the Red Sox. 5 innings pitched, did not look like his best stuff. Said that about himself afterwards. You would expect the Red Sox to wait and see because you haven't seen his full body of work, a full season of him being an ace starting pitcher. But this is Craig Breslow. This is the front office being very calculated, being very decisive, and knowing when they traded for Garrett Crochet, giving up all those prospects, those first-round picks, this is what the plan was. But not waiting at all. Giving him just over $28 million a year makes him the highest paid left-handed pitcher with AAV, beating Max Fried, who got it from the Yankees. But now Garrett Crochet, the Sox ace for the future.
Yeah, I think even though this is great news, my first reaction was shock because what were we talking about a while ago? If they don't come to a negotiation, if they don't get a deal in play here before opening day, they're not going to have it going down. They still had him for a year, so it was all this, what's the rush? In a sense, since they weren't looking to come to terms before opening day. Opening day comes and goes. You said it. You know, the numbers, there were some good parts to it, but then also you saw how he criticized himself. He doesn't want those walks. It's something that he's been working on and trying to be very meticulous about. But I will say this, regardless of just the 1 game in hand, and 4 years under his belt, I think because A, where the market is trending, and B, what the expectation is. I mean, we talked about it. Cy Young has been just revolving around his name so heavily. So when you think of what's expected this season, when you think of if he actually executes to that level, the price is going to go up. So in a sense, they feel like they locked him in at a better deal now than trying to negotiate almost a year from now or less, where there might be more to add to the total overall. Yeah,
and this is a guy that they agreed to this deal. 25 now, will play out the final year of what he's under the arbitration agreement, more of the cost control. Then it kicks in next year. But with it being a 6-year extension, you basically have him as age 25 to age 31, 32 season, depending exactly where his birthday falls. There is an opt-out at one point. He can opt out. He can exercise a player option after the 5th year. So he could opt out, market resets, he's performing well, he could get more money, whether with the Red Sox or through free agency. Or if he sticks with it, then it would be the full 6 year. But this is a guy that, left-hander with an absolute just killer of an arsenal between his cutter, four-seamer, has a sweeper in that as well. Had 209 strikeouts in just 146 innings pitched his last season with the White Sox, where they did have him on an inning count because they knew they wanted to trade him. So they didn't want his mileage to be ramped up. It was more on the Red Sox making that call than Garrett Crochet needing to be on an inning count. But this is the ace the Red Sox need. This is the biggest extension they've ever given out. Second biggest contract they've ever given to a starting pitcher. The last was David Price. But this is them going out and getting their ace. And this is when they traded for him, giving up a prospect like a Kyle Teal, which they would have needed at catcher, especially with his bat. You trade for a player like this, you bring him in with the eye of this extension. And I like what you mentioned of how the talk was get it done before opening day, get it done before opening day. And the Red Sox didn't have to be so urgent because they had 2 years of cost control, of team control for him as well. They could have waited till next offseason, but then the price could have gone up. New free agency signings, him performing. This could have been 35,
other
40
pitchers
million
driving
a year.
the market.
Exactly. The market would reset with every new contract. They get it done now. Yes, it's $28 million plus a year. Yes, it's a lot for a guy that hasn't proven himself as a starting pitcher, but this is Craig Breslow, all the intel that they've gathered, all the knowledge they have on Garrett Crochet, all the analytics, the sabermetrics, every office coming together. They're making this investment and they're saying it's going to be worth every penny. It's going to work out because a contract like this, Garrett Crochet is going to be in the Cy Young conversation. That is the capability he has to be the best left-handed pitcher, one of the best pitchers in baseball this season. If he performs like that, especially 2-3 years from now, 4 years from now, this contract will be pennies on the dollar. This will be such a team-friendly deal. They get ahead of the market. They've done it with Brian Bayo. They've done it with Ceddanne Rafaela. Now that is projecting prospects. This is a legit major league pitcher. They're getting done with this, but same thing, projecting his value, getting him under agreement now. And good for Garrett Crochet. He said it before the season. Everyone wants that long-term security. $170 million, $28 million a year. He got it right there.
Yeah, and I think on a larger picture, it speaks to what they want this team to look like down the stretch. They're basically making a statement by locking in Crochet now, saying like there's all this hype that the Red Sox are going to be this bigger and badder team this year, and like, let's say, God forbid, it doesn't happen. The message with this contract says we're here to stay. We're here to make that comeback. We're here to be a pest in the MLB for the next years to come. So I think that's the next most important thing in putting and establishing that trust in Crochet. That's just going to enhance what he's already bringing to the table. You talked about his different pitching styles that he's just so lethal with. I mean, thinking of the cutter specifically, 48.9% of the time is when he uses that pitch, and he's a lefty going against 75% of the league, which are righties. So when you're just weighing out the statistics, and as you mentioned, the analytical approach from Craig Breslow, is that what you said?
Craig Breslow, yeah.
Yeah, making sure I'm saying everybody's name right today. But considering the analytical approach to all of that, when you're putting all the numbers and stacking it, you're looking at what you health on his side are going to get for the long term. And to put this value in a player now, when he gets to that opt-out conversation, you're building a team around him basically. So you're obviously giving him another foot in the door to want to stay in Boston. So you're potentially looking at years to come with the age bracket that he's sitting in come end of the contract. Yeah. So there's so many pluses to this, but just seeing how meticulous he is and how mindful he is and just how hard he wants to go out and crush those numbers. I mean, his post-game pressers and just his response to everything and the way that he criticized himself positively, but in a good manner. Yeah. That just tells you that this team's got a good leader in Garrett Crochet to come.
This is making serious business moves. That's what John Henry does with the signing. That's what Craig Breslow does with the signing. They're serious about the moves they've made, and they're serious for the long-term value of this team as well. Speaking of Craig Breslow, he caught up with TC and Alex Spear on the latest episode of 3/10 to Left. They talk Garrett Crochet. Here it is for you guys right here.
Craig Breslow, Chief Baseball Officer of the Boston Red Sox, is with us. And Craig, we spent a lot of this time at spring training talking about locking up players for the future. The big news this week is that you have done that with Garrett Crochet. Talk a little about how this deal came together, how it extended into the season, and how that didn't become an exit ramp, how you were able to get this done even though he had already made a start.
Yeah, so obviously when we acquired Garrett, we did so with this idea that the team, the rotation could benefit from someone who could pitch at the top, who could anchor the rotation, and obviously he's a guy that had a great year last year as a starting pitcher, but I think more than some of the obvious stuff was just how much swing and miss he was able to generate, the consistency of the stuff throughout the season. And, at 25 years old, we feel like his prime is still in front of him. And so he was someone that we were very interested in securing and making a long-term commitment to. And these conversations have gone on for months now. And, there were times where we felt like we were really close and other times where we felt like we were miles apart. But I think we owe a huge thank you to Garrett, to Rachel, to our ownership group, seeing the commitment and to Garrett Rachel for having the trust in the Red Sox in the direction that we're heading and in making this a place that they want to be. And I know I've talked about how anytime the Red Sox have been in a position to this ownership group, John, Tom, Mike, Sam, have supported aggressive moves to ensure that the window of contention was as wide open as it could possibly be and could extend as long as possible. I think this is another piece of evidence toward that.
You say that there were times when you felt like you were miles apart. Was that as recent as into the season, right? Because Garrett had made clear that he wanted to. He was very interested in pursuing the possibility of a long-term deal, but he wanted to be able to focus on the season once the season arrived. So, yeah, was there, even in Texas, did it feel like this was not a thing that was going to happen? And if so, what changed?
Yeah, so, the conversations were always respectful and productive, and I the position that Garrett was in. At the same time, it seems as though he appreciated the organization, the brief amount of time that he had spent in Boston through the offseason, the direction that this organization is heading, and how competitive we should be given the emergence of the young core position players. And it's true. Approaching opening day, I was not confident that there was a deal to be had, at least in this go around of conversations. And I was very mindful of the deadline that Garrett set, and did not want this to become a distraction through the season. But I don't know if it was stubbornness or relentlessness or what it was, but we continued to push, and ultimately we were able to get something across the finish line that seems like it can be a win for both sides.
So I'm curious about that, right? When there is a deadline, when one side says, I'd like to get this done by now, is it a case of you feel you're so close? Is it a conversation that was happening before the deadline that if we're within a certain yardage of the end zone, we can keep pushing on this? Like, how does the dance before getting a deal done, how does that take place? And how did you decide you could get this done even though that deadline had passed?
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a playbook for these things. I think you have to try and react to each individual situation. In this case, I think each side had made a move toward trying to find a deal, but we were not lining up. And opening day and Garrett's opening day start came and went, and I think both sides were prepared to table the conversations, save for one more kind of return to the negotiating seat. And I think the one thing that a deadline does is it starts to draw out a more realistic look at positions, and kind of gives each side maybe a little bit more of a chance to kind of peek behind the curtain and say, where can we get this done? And when you have two parties who are genuinely and authentically interested in reaching an outcome that satisfies both, knowing that there's some give and take here, I think that's when you have a chance to get something done. I think you have to be respectful of deadlines. You have to be, you have to acknowledge what these types of conversations can mean for a player who's trying to compete in a really, really competitive sport. But at the same time, we felt like this was an opportunity to continue to push the conversation and see if we couldn't get it finished.
See that conversation? That was TC, Garrett Crochet, talking about the signing of Garrett Crochet from Craig Breslow. What jumped out to me, Case, was him talking about going into opening day, he wasn't confident it was going to get done. Mm-hmm. He knew the deadline that Garrett Crochet implemented, but he's like, I don't know if it was stubbornness, relentlessness, but they continued to push. And you get it done after one start before you'll have the second start against the Orioles. That's pushing the deadline, but not too much. And I think the bigger part is you let Garrett Crochet go out and pitch.
Right.
He talked about pressing in a way when he made his first start for the Red Sox. He was too concerned about not walking batters, and that's what led him to walk batters. He was thinking about it.
Right.
When last season he was so good at it. But overall, with this team that is, all the moves they made is so focused on winning, so hungry for the city to get back to the postseason, the mountaintop's big because when you're playing baseball in Boston, New York, LA, those cities are unlike, in Chicago, those are unlike the other cities you'll get across Major League Baseball. When you're missing the postseason, if you get to the postseason, it's not enough. You have to win in the postseason on those levels. So everything this team wants to achieve, when you get someone like a Garrett Crochet, he knows why he's brought in. When you sign someone like an Alex Bregman, I think it's the overall structure of this team. They know what the expectations are. It takes one less ounce of pressure. You got paid, go out and pitch. We believe in you. If anything, it gives him more confidence. Don't worry about not walking batters. Just focus on your pitches. Focus on each pitch, one pitch at a time, and then you're going to look up and see 0 in the walks category up on the scoreboard. That's what they're doing here, where he goes, I know we pushed the deadline. I know he implemented it. But, we wanted to pay him. Right. Want to keep him long-term, and we want to take away the distraction from the clubhouse. The Red Sox accomplished all that.
Yeah, and the other thing building off of that is that he talked about the fact that there was a lot of genuine conversation. There was understanding on both sides, but it was more so the fact that Crochet was like, I don't want this, I'm not bringing this conversation into the season. I want to focus. And as you mentioned, then you get game 1 under your belt. You see what he's about. You can kind of confirm what you're investing in because, what you've seen over 4 years intertwined with some of the injuries and some of the bounce backs that Crochet has had to have at a younger age. Spring training, you only learn a degree of these guys' characters. The pressure's different. The routine is different. So you also get that approaching a real regular season game day. What's his structure? What's he like? How does he rise up to a pressured situation? And I think he checked all of those boxes on top of the fact of, not letting it go too far in, as you mentioned, because the other thing that he said that stood out is like, Crochet was like not wanting to negotiate past opening day because he didn't want the distraction. Yeah. So to just know how he functions, how he works, and then to get that confirmation out of the way game 1 and to know that we didn't even see a game 2 out of this, you could just see that there was just one more box that needed to be checked. And now he can take that deep breath and completely focus in. And I think it's kind of the good news and a morale lift that this team's going to need at the moment as well. Like, this is how a team can rally around a guy knowing that you secured not only a moment and a season ahead, but a future for this Red Sox organization. Yeah, and the guy that, if he pans out and if he lives out this contract to the expectations, there's bonuses for how he finishes in Cy Young voting. There are bonuses all throughout this one. If he hits everything to meet that $170 million as well, through the bonuses and all of that, then worth every single penny. Hey, the Red Sox are back. Garrett Crochet is now the ace for the next 6 years. And everyone is watching closely to see if the team is playoff bound in 2025. We know you have a lot of questions about the Sox future, so we asked the players, coaches, executives, and alum those same questions on Nesson's Baseball Podcast, 310 to Left. You can find on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever else you get your podcasts. All right, okay, so shifting over to the Patriots. Big news, Bill Parcells will be inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame. He'll be the first head coach ever to don the red jacket. Of course, Dante Scarnecchia, the legendary offensive line coach, has already been inducted. But this is Bill Parcells, 4-year head coach for the Patriots, led him to a Super Bowl appearance. The big news with this is that in his 4-year tenure, he took over a polarizing figure, one of the biggest faces in the NFL at the time, and took over, as Robert Kraft said in the statement, a franchise that was in absolute disarray. Like, only making it to the playoffs 6 times in the previous 33 years. There's a Super Bowl appearance in the mid-'80s. But when he got there, this is a team that won 9 games the prior 3 seasons combined, 2 one-win seasons as well. And this is also a guy that Robert Kraft inherited. When Bill Parcells first came in, of course, he was with James Orthwein, the older owner, Anheuser-Busch heir, lived in St. Louis. And the big play with that guy was get the team to break a lease of Foxborough, get Bill Parcells and the Patriots over to St. Louis, build a new stadium, and boom, that's a franchise. But then Robert Kraft bought it in Bill Parcells' second year. The next 3 years were tumultuous between the two of them. There was a butting of heads. But I think after all the years, for someone that was so significant in the success of the franchise, led them to a Super Bowl, helped give the franchise credibility, helped give it sustainability when Robert Kraft took over, and introduced Robert Kraft to Bill Belichick to be that connection there as well. This is big news. It's cool that he'll be wearing the red jacket. And this is more of Robert Kraft and the Patriots recognizing their history and giving credit to everyone that has helped the franchise get to this point. Yeah, well, the recognition on Kraft and the Patriots side being huge, obviously making this move happen. But, of course, I had to do a little bit of homework and just kind of see where the two finally were able to see eye to eye, because you said it, tumultuous past. They're known to just have a lot of rifts between the pair. So how did they get to this point where they finally wanted to recognize somebody who means so much to the organization, regardless of a 4-year span? And what I found interesting interesting is that in a documentary, Bill mentioned like he didn't love his exit. He actually on quote said that he regretted the way that he went out. And I think part of the friction and maybe the hurt feelings that lingered up into this point was the fact that when you look at Patriots history, most people are forced out. It's by the hand of the Patriots and Kraft that the decision is made where, Bill kind of had the upper hand here. He made the decision to move on his own, and he started getting those pieces moving ahead of time to make sure that he was going to line up what fit for him best. So I think that there was just a lot of old school ego in the mix. So for both guys to be at a certain point of their life and a certain point of their career, to be able to see eye to eye now, for there to be kind of remorse on both ends to a degree, I'm sure a lot of Patriots fans probably want to see this happen earlier rather than now, but I would say that the fact that it's happening is still big in itself. Yeah,
he's been passed up on wearing a red jacket in the past. Of course, he was elected into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2013, 22nd head coach to ever have that honor. How it goes for him again, he was brought in 93, different owner, and then an owner in Orthwine living in St. Louis was very hands-off, and that's how Bill Parcells liked to operate.
Yeah.
You have an absentee owner. He lets him run everything. Robert Kraft was the opposite. Very hands-on right away. Being a local guy. Yeah. And wanting to put his hands on everything. And that's where they butted heads. It even came down to the drafting of Terry Glenn, where Bill Parcells wanted to go with the defensive lineman. Last minute, Robert Kraft informed Bill Parcells he's going with his personnel guy because he didn't agree with his personnel decisions. And they drafted a receiver. It didn't sit well with him. The way the split was ugly was the fact that the Patriots were in the Super Bowl, getting ready to play the Packers, and that week leading up, he was in talk with the Jets to become their head coach. It's a division rival, and also when your team is in the Super Bowl, you can't tell that other team, give it a week, and then I'll talk to you.
Right.
Bill Parcells denied it. There were, the records
Hotel
of
records.
of his phone calls, and it was very much he was on the phone with the Jets and all that. What got me to this point what's significant is you look up the past quotes, like Jonathan Kraft in 2004, speaking about Bill Parcells. I hated the man with a passion. Oof. He's someone who tried to make my father look bad. He tried to make him look foolish, and as a son, I hated him for it. Robert Kraft in 2013 saying, in the end, we have a great relationship today. I have great respect for him. He did a great deal for our franchise. I'll forever be grateful for that. And even Bill Parcells saying, for the owner and myself, it was untenable. I'm not saying I wasn't part of the problem because I was, but I wasn't solely responsible. And he's talking about their fracture and their breakup at that point. Mm-hmm. Again, this is a franchise that wouldn't be where it was without someone like Bill Parcells giving them that foundation to build off of for all the credibility. So it's cool to see it pay forward here. And this is in the same time where Robert Kraft, speaking at the owners' meetings, or more of everything going down in Palm Springs, Florida, he was asked about a secession plan. And the question was, you're going to be 84 in June. This is normally when other owners have stepped down. Do you have a secession plan? He's like, look, I feel 35, but my oldest son, Jonathan, has been there for every major decision that I've made. We've talked about a secession plan for our businesses, for the Patriots. He's in the room for every major decision. He stays out of the limelight. But we've talked about what could happen with everything next 2 to 3 years. So Robert Kraft, it's funny, on the same day they announced Bill Parcells going to the Hall of Fame, you see these quotes that come back up of Jonathan Kraft. I hated the man. Of Robert Kraft and Bill Parcells, obviously the butting of egos, like you said, for them to amend those past relationships. Because this doesn't happen again if Jonathan Kraft isn't on board. I truly believe that.
Yeah.
But it shows this franchise they're trying to move past, and they want to bring all these people back that helped them get to this point now.
Yeah, that's the first thing that kind of jumped out to me when you were mentioning Jonathan's quote. I'm thinking to myself, if I was a business owner and the succession plan is basically laid out, I got to make sure that all of the pieces are in play here before my son takes over, because what you don't want is for him to have a protective nature, come into this thinking about something from years ago and not make the right decision now, being the head of anything. We don't see that happening anytime soon, on his words of feeling 34 years old and hopefully looking for another dance down the line here with any kind of stars that come through New England. But I think that it's very telling to the fact that I feel like Kraft's kind of been in the hot seat a number of times on whether he's going to give honor and credit where it's due at the timing of which it's due. I know that large conversation has been about, the relationship between him and Belichick as of late. So it just kind of circles back to what I said earlier. Like most coaches, most players to a certain degree have kind of had that push out versus like making the hard decision that they're going to move along.
Yeah.
But he did lay the groundwork. He did put down the foundation for them to build accordingly. And Bill Belichick was able to come in not only with a fantastic football brain and caliber to start building out the empire that the Patriots became. But also, I was reading on the fact of how economically sound he was and how he was able to make these different financial decisions that were better beneficially for the Patriots versus what Bill was putting in place. So there's just like this perfect tug of war here that shows you why both guys belong where they're both heading. To a degree, but Bill finally getting that tap makes sense, especially before we see the Jonathan Kraft era.
Yeah, and it's Parcells also, like, it was on his own amend of he left. Like, he wanted to take that Jets job. He left the team. That was very polarizing moment as well, because also it's him taking Curtis Martin with him as well to New York, who was a first-round pick for the Patriots as well. And then that's Robert Kraft going, I don't want Bill Belichick. I don't want to promote him yet because too close to Parcells. Dealing with Pete Carroll, then going, all right, give me Bill Belichick. And not everything was perfect between how Kraft and Belichick ended, but Bill didn't do himself any favors by the way he drafted, talking Bill Belichick there. And that's a part of it. It was the right timing at that point. It was Bill Belichick at the end becoming tone deaf with his personnel decisions for the team. This is a part of recognize the past. Kraft is very excited for what they have now with Mike Vrabel to move forward. This was the right move, though. And honestly, this is a team that at best is going to win 9 games. They need to find a way to fill seats. I think that's also a move, too. The team isn't ready yet to be winning serious. They'll be in the playoffs maybe 2 years from now. Right now, it's the same way of they had the Tom Brady event, and they're going to unveil the statue. They're stretching this stuff out where how many times can we fill out the stadium like they did for Tom Brady?
True.
They will end up doing the same for Bill Parcells. And eventually, when they can make peace with Bill Belichick, because Belichick still holds it against the Krafts. We can hear it every time he talks in the public. They want to amend that as well. If you want more Patriots talk, check out the latest episode of Foxborough Rush every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We're doing more mock drafts, talking draft analysis, and talking with analysts like Matt Miller, Connor Rogers, Trevor Sikkema, everything you want Patriots 3 times a week. That's Foxborough Rush all year long. Not just season, all year long. Available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and wherever podcasts are found. All right, we'll get to what's trending. Casey, some new rules coming in the NFL. Starting with the kickoff rule. I love this. Last year, it took a few weeks for the kickoff rule, the new one, to be implemented and really see a benefit of more returns. Where basically there was a kick zone, took away the high-speed hits. But if you kick out of the back of the end zone, which a lot of teams voluntarily were doing because it would create more returns, they were fine with putting the ball on the 30. Now, if there's a touchback, the ball's put on the 35. That, to me, says there will be more kicks in the new landing zone, the new catch zone. We'll see more returns, which end up at the 30 anyway. But the difference of 5 yards, like watching this last season, every coach you can see voluntarily did not care. And it was the Andy Reids, the Sean McVays, right? Those high IQ coaches that lead the best teams and have the best football mind saying, kick it in the back of the end zone, we'll take it on 30, we don't care. Move it up to 35, it changes a lot of percentages. That was a play. I'm excited about this rule.
No, I think it was smart because you said it perfectly. The first thing that jumped out to me when we heard the news of the rule change was the fact of how many teams and how many coaches were all for going for the kick. I mean, it almost became a standing joke at some point. So now this is going to help just kind of shift gears a little bit and not make it, oversimplify the situation. So I'm a big fan of it. I know that there was talks of it for about a year and a half is when fans really started raging about it. But then in terms of like their response, I feel like this is something that we were hoping this was going to push through, and this is the perfect season to make that happen after all of the kicks this previous season.
Yeah, also the Replay Assist program, you see it on your screen, the report from Ian Rappaport. There will now be an on-site replay official can reverse flags called on hits to defenseless players, face mask, horse collar, tripping, running, or roughing the kicker. They can't add a flag on a non-call, but it's good that some of these calls where, especially hits to a defenseless player, which is so difficult in real time to call, that there will be that on-site replay official to basically be the eye in the sky. No, pick up the flag and move on from that.
Yeah, well, they needed it because there was a number of games. I mean, this is every season for a while now, hence why this came in, where that call was probably just way too close and it would have completely changed the game. And to be honest, there was a number of calls where it just didn't add up.
Yep. And also with the new overtime rule, each team will now get a possession overtime, just like the postseason. Used to be in the regular season, first team scores a touchdown, game ends. No, it'd be 10-minute overtime, and both teams will have a possession and an opportunity to win the game. Moving to MLB, the Braves. Jurickson Profar, leadoff hitter, has been suspended 80 games, testing positive for PEDs. He can return to the team once his 80-game suspension is served, but cannot play in the 2025 postseason. This was a big offseason signing from the Padres for Atlanta. He is their leadoff hitter. He's so important for this offense. It wants to get back on track, be healthy again. Getting Ronald Acuna back in Atlanta, that's a big miss for them. 80-game suspension, most importantly, no postseason.
Such a blow. It is such a blow. I mean, I know we hear about these things all the time, especially come MLB, but considering the timeline and then losing 80 games on a guy that you're kind of banking on to help just fill that void. I mean, the number of injured players that they have that they're not looking to rush back into any sort of lineup, this is going to completely screw with that timeline. And, you know, a lot of people were trying to make a case for the Braves to be able to sit at the top at some point this season, and that's also going to shift because of this. So that's just, it stinks because it doesn't just affect him and his play, but this is like a radical feel for the Braves as well.
Yeah, this is a good team, obviously. With the farm system, we've seen all these prospects come up. This is a front office we've seen trade to make the team better as well. But you lose a player like a Jurickson Profar. They're still dealing with Ronald Acuna, Spencer Strider on the IL as well. Key guys and key pieces. And when you're in a division with the Mets, that's what makes it so difficult. For Profar, I mean, it's a huge deal. I mean, had a good season with the Padres. That's why he got this contract. For a contending team like the Braves, tough part is it cheating. You don't see the suspensions like you see in MLB and any other sport.
Yeah.
And it's funny with MLB of they always want to get away from like the Bonds, Maguire, Jose Canseco type era, even Sammy Sosa. Stuff still comes out like this of like big players, significant players on some of the best teams getting these massive suspensions. There still is a cheating that's rampant in the sport in certain spots.
Yeah, well, the suspensions seem to be so big because the first thing that started to circulate around this was like, do we take back the Padres season that he had that was so outstanding? I mean, you're talking about a 2024 All-Star also. So that's, I think, that where they think that they're helping correct the situation. But I mean, it's a new year, it's a new season, and then on top of it, a new team. Like, you can't always overstack that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Mets, now it's really their division to lose. Hey, make sure to stream the entire Sox season with the NESN 360 annual plan. Available at an all-new reduced price of just $20 a month paid annually. And for a limited time, get 4 free tickets to Fenway with your purchase. Visit NESN360.com to sign up today. Now throw it to Athan and Matt with the weekly Ringside Review for the latest on Monday Night Raw.
Welcome into another edition of Ringside Review. Today I'm joined alongside once again by Matt Colpitts here. We're going to talk Monday Night Raw, one of the, in my eyes, best Monday Night Raws we've had since the Elimination Chamber. A lot of fleshing out for stories. We also had some stuff we're going to touch on quickly on SmackDown before we get into the thick of things, but Matt, thank you once again for joining me. We're going to start with the SmackDown talk quickly before we dive into Cena Rhodes 3. I just wanted to get your opinion on this because this is something we've talked about a lot on the show prior to you coming on here, and I want to see where your head's at with this. I initially was not a fan of this triple threat. This past Friday, Punk, Rollins, Roman contract signing, Roman giving CM Punk his main event, Punk alluding to the fact that is not the favor he's looking for from Paul Heyman, Seth Rollins, as the kids are saying these days, crashing out. There is a lot going on in this all. I want to ask you what you think about this match being the main event of night one, but also what your thoughts are on CM Punk's favor from Heyman. I'll give you mine just because this is kind of where I've been. I think it leads with CM Punk asking Heyman to be in his corner at WrestleMania. That feels like a tipping point for Roman Reigns and is like the cherry on top at this point. But I want to hear from you. Thoughts on the main event and also the favor itself from Punk.
Yes, so right off the bat, I am not surprised that this is a main event. I say a because we know nowadays we got 2 main events at WrestleMania. However, I do think it was just time that CM Punk gets it. And I feel like the giveaway is that Roman Reigns is in this match. I saw a graphic not too long ago that Roman Reigns is now going to be at 10 main events, I believe. Rollins, I believe, is at 4. Punk, this will be his first. And with that being said, is Roman Reigns. It's 3 of WWE's biggest stars. I was not surprised this is going to main event. I know a lot of people were fighting for the women's triple threat to main event, or obviously Jey Uso and Gunther, who we'll talk about later. But yeah, I'm not surprised this would have been my pick. As for the favor, I am all in on the feud that we're going to talk about next, Cena and Cody. I do not want this favor to be Punk inserting himself into one of these title matches. If he does, let it be the Jey Uso match. I want Cena and Cody to have their time. I think that is very much the story going into this year's WrestleMania. So if CM Punk does have a favor, I'm hoping it's what you said. I'm hoping it is that he's just trying to bring Paul Heyman back to his side. He's just, I feel like that's the only thing really tying Punk and Roman in the storyline is the fact that Paul Heyman is in play. And I mean, at the end of the day, he's getting his main event. He can bring Paul Heyman back. I feel like that is enough to satisfy CM Punk. But I'm still sticking on what I stood by last week. I'm going to say and predict that this match ends with Rollins leaving with Paul Heyman.
I know. That's the one thing I can't get out of my head now since I've seen that start to get spin around the internet is just what a thing it would be if Seth Rollins, acting the way he's been acting with this whole entire situation, being the guy, the architect, the mastermind kind of guy to ultimately pull off the biggest heist that you could in this match, and that is taking the service of Paul Heyman away from both Punk and Roman. It would be incredible. But yeah, I'm all in on the main event. Again, this was something I wasn't really in for, but they've done a great job of fleshing this out, and I think that Friday Night SmackDown segment really solidified it in my eyes. This is deserving of a night one main event. You have the star power. You have the story being told now. They for me, and I think it says a lot for me because I, again, did not want this, and here I am just a few weeks down the road now, and I think I want it more than anything else at this point. So I love what they're doing. I think they've hit a home run with this one. Now, you alluded to Cena and Cody, so I'm curious to see where this goes here. For Monday Night Raw, Cody Rhodes, John Cena 3, this is potentially the last face-to-face until WrestleMania. There is a piece of me that feels like maybe there's one final face-to-face we get that's just not scheduled at this point here, but maybe it is the last time we see these two go head-to-head, and my goodness, was it a way to cap off things if that is the last time we see them go to WrestleMania? I mean, both sides just going shot for shot, shooting from the hip. We had John Cena, who basically acknowledged the fact that he buried, instead of talent, it was mediocrity in his eyes. And this is where I needed the Cena line to go because I wasn't buying into what he was saying at first. It didn't sound authentic, but now we're getting corporate Cena, the business side of Cena. It wasn't me burying talent. I was burying people that were not supposed to be in that position. So it gives you that heel aspect from where he's coming from, calling Rhodes a Nepo baby, pointing out the overpolishment of Cody Rhodes. Rhodes did a great job firing back as well with some of the things he said. I just want to get your thoughts because this was the segment everyone needed in my eyes. And I think the vast majority of the internet wrestling community agrees. And we are now set up for one hell of a main event for WrestleMania 41 on night 2.
So as I said, this is absolutely what I am buying into. I mentioned it last week when I came on, but these are my two favorites. Cena was my childhood hero. Cody, I'm all in on the Cody Rhodes arc as we speak. But I did say that this is what we needed. We needed something where Cena could just finally lay in and kind of bury Cody, as he alluded to. And I think Cody also held his own. I think Cody had some firepower. I loved that they just made it real from the start. Right off the bat, Cody was like, you know what? I already know what you're going to say. You're going to talk about AEW. You're going to talk about Stardust. You're going to talk about the I don't belong in the main event. You're going to talk about the Lisp, for example. Everything. I love that he just, kind of took the bullets from Cena's gun. And with that being said, Cena still was able to find a way to still kind of just drill home the legendary way that Cena does. And I think both of these guys came out looking incredibly strong, incredibly full of momentum heading into this match. And I'm even more bought into this than I was prior. I think is what we needed. We needed the intensity. That's what's been lacking these past 2 weeks, where Cena comes out, complains, whines, walks away while Cody just says, oh, who are you? Like, you need to find who John Cena is. I think this was the turning point. People are buying in. And like you said, I would like to see if it's going to be more of a build, or maybe if The Rock's going to come back and that's going to kind of be how we carry the build, or if they're really just going to have Cody Rhodes use some promos to the crowd for another 2 to 3 weeks until we get to WrestleMania. I'm interested in that, but I'm 100% all on board with this story. The match I'm looking forward to most at WrestleMania, and I loved it. I thought both came out looking incredible.
Yeah, I've got to say, Cody Rhodes really did a great job hanging in there with Cena. If there is one thing that rings true about John Cena, whether you enjoyed him or not during his entire run, he is one of the best, up there with guys like The Rock, Stone Cold, CM Punk I have up there, as well as just like mic talkers and it's clear like he's not scripted, he's just shooting from the hip. And Cody, the fact that he was able to just pull the gun from his own holster and do the same, like, it was beautiful. And we had such great back and forth. And there was one thing that John Cena pointed out in this that I really want to just touch on for a quick second here, was John Cena alluding to the fact that Cody Rhodes is hiding who he truly is. And it was kind of like a bit of a foreshadowing in my eyes. The internet's talked about it a lot. I know I've thought about it a lot. I'm sure you have as well. The eventual heel turn of Cody Rhodes is going to be magnificent. And it's one of those things that I wonder if this somehow, some way, if it leads to Cena winning, if in some way they find a way for this to turn Cody into that heel. I know there's too much money to be made with Cody as a face right now, and the kids are just gobbling up his merchandise, and it's no secret. Everyone knows that is the big reason why Cena never turned, and why when I predicted the Cena heel turn, I laid it out. You don't need Cena for the money anymore, and for the kids, that's what Cody's for. So I know that that's going to be long down the road, but the foreshadowing of Cody's heel turn and Cena telling everyone, this is not who you really are. It reminds me of when Bray Wyatt said it to him during that cinematic match in WrestleMania 36 during the COVID era. I'm so ready for that. And then on top of that, we even kind of got a glimpse of it, because this was the most fiery we've seen Cody, from him referencing Vince McMahon being the guy that chose Cena, not the fans like they chose Cody, or just the way he pointed out the fact that John Cena didn't leave WWE better than he found it. John Cena joined WWE in one of the hottest eras of wrestling, or even maybe more so on like the tail end of it, but still in a very hot era, whereas when he started to leave full time, 2016 WWE was not by any stretch of the imagination the best era of all. It was probably one of the worst around that time, where he started to go more part-time. So, we're getting so much from this here. And at this point now, it leaves me just wondering, how do we get from 3 weeks out from WrestleMania to WrestleMania without having one more face-to-face? How do we not get at least an appearance from The Rock, who got mentioned by Cody in that promo? The Rock has to show up, right? I can't be alone on that. And also on top of that, we've seen Rock just announce on social media days before. Like when they were in New Orleans and they announced WrestleMania, 42 next year? Yes. WrestleMania is in New Orleans. The Rock made an appearance, an announcement two nights before or so. We've got to get The Rock one last time or something to explain his part in all this, correct? Am I wrong on that?
No, 100%. I feel like at the end of the day, the whole final boss gimmick, you were always just wondering, what's the deal with, him, Roman Reigns, we're going to get that. Then to have the Cena heel turn with the shock factor. It's been the one thing that's kind of been unaddressed for these 3 weeks. This is the first time we're hearing The Rock's name even just mentioned. Mm-hmm. So I do think it's a huge missing part of the story. Is it more of just the general, Cena was just kind of embracing Hollywood Cena, and that's why Travis Scott and Rock were in the ring in the first place, to kind of represent Hollywood? Or does The Rock play a bigger role in this story? Obviously, him and Cody have been building a story and absolutely just hinting, alluding when Rock gives him a gift the night after WrestleMania 40 to just some big payoff. And I feel like we still have not gotten that just yet. So I am hopeful as a fan that The Rock is coming back to help with this build to WrestleMania 41. And he has to have an appearance at the event itself. Otherwise, I feel like that would definitely be a big miss in this storyline.
Yeah, it feels like it would just leave a gaping hole in the entire story. So if we don't, The Rock just has to make an appearance at some point. And I'm going forward with the idea that we get by the way, maybe 6 nights out from Mania, 3 nights out from Mania, whatever it may be, whatever show they choose to do it on, Rock's got to make an appearance. He's got to address his involvement somehow, some way, even if it is at WrestleMania in some capacity. I don't know how you could really do that, but we need Rock and his involvement to be answered in this all. And the fact that we haven't really gotten much of an explanation as to what he has to do with this whole thing is just, I feel like at this point we're going to get the answer, because you and I just last week were talking about things and we got a ton of answers this week about it. So it's coming, but I feel like a kid again. I'm 29 years old and I'm talking about wrestling to people like I'm 13 years old again. And I cannot be more enamored by wrestling right now. And that leads me to the next thing that we got to discuss here. Jey Uso and Gunther. I have ragged on this build basically since it kicked off after the Royal Rumble. I was very optimistic when they went with Jey Uso. Maybe they'll surprise us. Maybe this is something we didn't all know we wanted to see, that by the end of it, we'll be like, wow, that was awesome. And then that first week, I was kind of like, oh, okay, not great. And then from that point forward, I have fallen so off on the bandwagon on this, but we finally got what I needed personally to invest in this rivalry, and that was Gunther being Gunther, going back to his days as Walter in NXT, the dominant force of nature, doing heel-like things, beating down on guys, zip-tying Jey to the ropes and making him watch as he beat down his brother senseless in the middle of the ring. Gunther came off as the monster that I personally see him as and who I need him to be for this match to be something I'm willing to invest in. How are you feeling about this build? Because you and I haven't discussed this yet. I want to hear your thoughts from all the way up to this point now and maybe from that moment going forward. How are you looking at this?
I agree that, first off, talking about shock factor as we have all day, Jay winning the Rumble, number one instance of shock factor. You did not expect that.
Oh, absolutely.
So now you know that Jay is going to face, eventually we find out it's Gunther at WrestleMania. With that being said, I do think the build has fallen flat. Jay's getting all this criticism on Twitter, online, just shooting this match down. We have seen it on Raw, so it's not like it's the first time ever type of match. But I always wanted to kind of believe in it. I am a huge Jay fan. I see why he's so popular. He's such a merch seller. He's up there with Cody Rhodes, probably doing similar, if not more, merch numbers depending on the day and week. But this build feels like it didn't really take off until last week when Jimmy, his brother, got involved. That is because I feel like when you make these storylines personal, that's when it starts to click. It's what we saw with Rey Mysterio and Dom Mysterio, and like Dom invaded the Mysterio house on Thanksgiving. It's what we've seen in the past, way back when Triple H and Randy Orton were feuding, and then Stephanie McMahon got involved. It's always when you bring in the personal ties where a storyline really starts to sell, and I think adding Jimmy has really worked. Now, 2 weeks ago when Jimmy first got involved, I was actually disappointed. They were in Scotland, so everyone was thinking it was going to be Joe Hendry as the mystery partner to Jey Uso, but now I feel like with these payoffs and the answers we're getting for the storyline, it makes 100% sense as to why Jimmy has been inserted into the story, what his purpose has served, kind of just to get you emotionally tied for Gunther to just become Walter once again, an absolute monster, and for Jay to just kind of get that like emotional underdog, like you just need him to get that revenge on Gunther for attacking his own family in blood. So I think they've really turned it around. They have seen the criticism. They even played into it with Jay making so many mistakes. The botched dive out of the ring, the slip when he goes to hit the spear. All of a sudden, I feel like the story for this match has completely flipped upside down, and I'm all in as well. They're taking the criticisms that you're getting about this WrestleMania build for each one of these stories that we've discussed for these matches, and they're just completely proving us wrong. All the criticisms that we have on Twitter and online, and we're like, this makes no sense with Punk being in a triple threat. Makes no sense why Cena as a face is facing Cody Rhodes, why Jay is facing Gunther. I feel like they're really just kind of shutting us up, and Triple H knows what he's doing. He's reading and listening to what the fans are saying, and this storyline is a great example of that.
I'd have to agree, and you know what? That brings us to the final discussion point here that we have, the Women's World title picture as well. One of those situations where you were kind of wondering, where is this all going? How are we doing this? And I feel like that's happened a lot in this build-up. And like you said, Triple H doing an excellent job of reading the room, or the cyberspace, I guess, in this instance here, where we had this surprise Io versus Rhea Ripley matchup following the Elimination Chamber that I was left wondering, what are we doing with this? Why is this happening? To Io winning the championship, to concerns about her being a third wheel, to some of that does still kind of live in the back of my mind, but it's now turned into a Rhea Ripley desperate to make sure she's still competing for the championship. She feels she should not have lost at WrestleMania, and to the point where I was worried that they were going with like a gullible like face or tweener angle with her, but now it's clear that she's just willing to take all competitors, no fear, and now she's pulling threats left and right. We saw the post-match interview with Jackie Redmond following Raw. At this point now, I'm basically left wondering, because Bianca Belair, while technically screwing them both in the matchup, obviously hurt Rhea more because Rhea now does not have an opportunity into the WrestleMania match for the championship. What is next? Does Rhea Ripley force the hand of Adam Pearce? Does she have to go after Io to force Io to hand her the opportunity to have a matchup? Like that's really the question I have now, and I'm not worried so much as to Io getting left out. I'm more so just left with the questions now. How are we getting there? And I'm, again, excited, looking forward to it. How are we getting there? What do you think happens next week? How do we get to this triple threat? Because that's what everyone seems to think it's happening.
That's the money question, and to be honest with you, I have no idea. I feel like that is where Triple H wants you to kind of be with this feud. You all know what's coming. You know the payoff is going to be this triple threat at Mania, which that alone, I have no idea who's winning with this storyline and what's going on. But I don't know. That's the honest truth, and I think that's what they want. They want you to just know what's coming, but have no idea what road is going to lead to that. I thought this match yesterday with Bianca as a special guest referee kind of ended as we expected. We didn't expect a clean winner or a clean victory. But I don't know where it goes next. Is Rhea going to target Io and try to injure her? Is she going to try to target Bianca and injure her? What's the whole deal? Like, is the contract ever going to come back into play that Rhea just kind of forced herself into and sign? Or was this it? She kind of signed herself into this opportunity, lost, that's it. Maybe they do go into WrestleMania literally marketing Bianca versus Io, and that's it. And then maybe she'll insert herself some way during the night or just interfere. I believe I kind of referred to that last week. But I'm just not sure, and that's the honest truth. I love it. I love riding this roller coaster ride for the storyline. I'm also just as bought into this storyline and could have seen it main eventing just as much as the other triple threat that we discussed. But personally, I don't even know what my prediction would be other than it's going to lead to a triple threat, and I'm excited to see how it gets there.
And I've got to say, Monday Night Raw, WWE, forget Monday Night Raw, WWE must-see television right now as the road to WrestleMania continues to unfold, and it feels like it's getting better each and every single week. But, Matt, once again, thank you for joining me today on another edition of Ringside Review. We're fresh out of time. Make sure you all tune in again next week to talk some more wrestling with Matt and I.
That's it for Kasey Hudson, George Balekji, and Boston has ended the chat. Appreciate you guys making us a part of your day. Make sure to like, subscribe, download, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Prime. You could also find us on YouTube as well. Go to Netson's YouTube page and hit the subscribe button. We'll see you with a new episode of The Chat tomorrow.